Oh, yeah. And the music, it's getting better as well, folks. We are back. The Sunday Fun Day stream, and we are going to get uber weird and creepy tonight. Gents, we're back. I'm in the dark here. It looks like I'm sitting here in a cave. I'll sort my lighting out in a minute. But Ryan Gable here with us today. We're like the four horsemen of the pop apocalypse. Yes. How we doing, guys? Joe? How are you this Fun Day Sunday?
Doing great, man.
Like that Fun Day Sunday?
Fun Day Sunday, yeah.
Oh, lyrical master, dude. Scotty Lopez, how you doing, man?
Doing good. I'm digging those tunes. It definitely had kind of a retro 80s kind of vibe going on there. So
we have to thank Uni for that one. Uni obviously was feeling quite sorry for me. He was obviously hearing the absolute abuse that I was taking from you boys on a weekly basis, and he thought, I need to help my friend out. Need to get Kev some tunes.
I was about to say, that sounds like something Uni would have rocked on his stream, and so...
Oh, I take that as a high praise indeed, Mr. Scott. You know, imitation is the highest form of flattery, or so they say. But last, but definitely not least, Mr. Gable. Gable's Gamble. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. And Kev, I have to thank you sincerely, not only for having me tonight, but after weeks and weeks of therapy, I was able to get the poppy music out of my head, and you were so kind to play that before the show, and now it is in my head again. So thank you very much for that.
Dude, you've put this music that we're going to get into tonight, it does have that uncanny ability to somehow lodge itself into your mind right away. You only need to hear this kind of thing once, and it seems to be that's it, Ryan.
I got the whole first verse already in the factory, in the sterile place where they made me. I mean, it starts playing in my head over and over again. That's just the Time Is Up song by Poppy.
I mean, the sterile place where they made me. Joe, sounds like something right out of the pages of Aldous Huxley, right?
Yeah, at a minimum, dude. At a minimum, and of course, it's always the pop culture that they use to promote that kind of stuff, so.
Busy from my programming. Have I been wiped again? Oh my God, I don't even know.
My God.
You see, before we even get into this tonight, right, I want a quick update, or I've got a quick update on Clava Cairns. There's a lot of people writing to me today about all of the stuff we were talking about last night. And my kid brother, Kenny, a big shout out to him. Thank you for reminding me of this. We were talking about the paranormal activity that happened at night when we were there. And then I was showing this. We weren't the first people to experience something weird there. And we all know that I went to Crowley's, and I say that I took home a whole heap of bad luck with me. Well, it turns out Clava Cairns has got a similar kind of history as well. Long story short, Belgian tourist, when he went to visit there, decided he would take one of the stones home with him. It says here the man became so disturbed by events that he posted the souvenir back to Scotland and was received at the tourist office in Inverness. In an anonymous letter following his visit in 2000, he said that since returning home with the stone, his daughter broke her leg, his wife became very ill, and he lost his job and broke his arm. He said, you'll probably be laughing at me, but while you're laughing, could you please take this stone back? Now, we were also saying last night how something didn't feel right about the site. And it says here, 26 cairns are the only ones on mainland Britain that are surrounded by stone circles and curbstones. Passages that bore into the centre of the cairn have been aligned to allow light from the rising and setting midsummer full moon. It's a lunar site that we were looking at. And it says, although human bone fragments have been found at Clava Cairns, it is not thought that the cairns themselves were used for burials. Get this, boys. Instead, it's believed that rituals using the dead were carried out there. And just one last
very
bit.
Interesting.
Yeah, one last bit. It says a report to Highland Council on the astronomical importance of the stone said the cairns were not used for the general disposal of the dead, but that the dead were required by some ritual determined by an astronomical event, such as the rising southern extremes of the sun and the moon, Scotty boy.
It was very interesting. My mom went back and watched the live stream yesterday, and she was watching the footage that you were playing and showing that little pathway that goes into the middle of the cairns, you know. And the first thing she said, that's not a burial site. She said that looks like where they go to do human sacrifice. You know, you walk into the middle, and then so I was like, yeah, okay. It makes a lot of sense. So probably, you know, during one of these lunar events, you know, during one of these solstices or whatever, they probably take somebody into the middle there, do a sacrifice, and so yeah, it's not some burial site.
No.
It's more of a astrological sacrifice site.
They were trying to counter. They were trying to counter Mercury retrograde, Scott. That's what it was.
Yeah. There we go.
See, Joe. Sorry, Ryan, but Joe, I told you there was something off about that site, dude. I wasn't buying what they said on the tin, and then you come to find that, well, either is anybody else by the looks of it.
Yeah, right. Hey, you know what? There's always more to the story. That's one thing we've always come to find out.
Never stop digging, pardon the pun, when it comes to archaeology. But bad luck, this dude took home with him, and that's what happened to me when I went to Crowley's portal as well. And it was when we were talking about Crowley last night, we had Ryan in the chat room, and it's kind of a pattern that's been developing on the shows throughout the week on KBS as well. And we decided, you know, we can't really talk about Crowley last night without bringing Ryan on today to go even deeper into all of this and the connections, of course, into the pop world. Now, some people might be thinking Crowley to the pop world. Well, a lot of the symbology and a lot of the stuff that they throw in our faces and all of these musical videos and with all of the latest sensations to hit the pop scene, you do come to find when you start to research that these people absolutely idolize Aleister Crowley and all of the works that he was actually getting into. So that's why it's great to have Ryan here today from the Secret Teachings. And we got into something the other night on the show, a character called Billie Eilish. Now, for some reason, I'm going to make it sound all exciting, you know, make the listeners think that we were hacked or something. The video didn't turn out right. Something went wrong. In reality, there'd been an update, but it sounds more exciting if you say we got hacked, Ryan, right?
The cabal.
Of course, it's the cabal. It's always the cabal. Hashtag deep state. But I thought to myself, you know, maybe it's kind of given us the impetus to get back together, the four of us now, and take a look at what the hell's going on in pop, because we've always had this association between the Illuminati and the music industry. There's nothing new there. But there is something new now, Ryan, because it's almost like we've entered a new game altogether, dude.
Yeah, it certainly is. A lot of pop music, popular music, like pop culture, comes with candy canes and rainbows and Skittles and kind of looks like a box of Lucky Charms. And then on occasion, you have a musician that will do a song where they say they've sold their soul to the devil or they've made a deal with a demon. And when they're questioned about that, usually they say, well, it's a metaphor. I've been in the industry a long time. The industry is kind of like the devil, and I've sold my soul to the industry. And that makes sense, perhaps, for people like Marshall Mathers or Eminem or Slim Shady, whichever personality he's taking on today. But it doesn't seem to make sense for very young pop stars, especially pop stars like Billie Eilish, who at 15 to 16 years old, even though she has a family in the entertainment industry, her brother's been in some shows like Glee and Modern Family, she's completely unknown. So she's about 15 years old, 16 years old, and she does a song called Ocean Eyes. And it was kind of colorful, kind of Easter colors, and it wasn't really dark. And she did a lot of other music initially, some individual single songs, which were kind of light, or at least if not light, they weren't demonic. They were just, it was just music, and she was wearing dark clothing. That's just her image. That's how she dresses. Nothing wrong with that. And then she's 16, 17 years old, and she starts to produce some music that's a little darker. She has a song where she drinks a glass of black goo, which to most listeners probably is very important. To others, maybe we'll get into the details of what that means. And then from that point on, she does a song where she, in my view, as we'll break down tonight, I've done this on the Kev Baker Show and my show, The Secret Teachings, last week. She is literally portraying the demonic entity Baal, the first king of hell, which it turns out her name actually is a replacement for the name Baal. Bill, Bel, Baal, Billie Eilish. Eilish is Sumerian for on high, so her name means the devil on high, or the first king of hell, Baal on high. That's just in the name. But the point
Wow.
to really get to here, Kev, that I think is the most significant is with a lot of other singers, you have a long and sordid past in the industry, and we can kind of write off their usage of this imagery as metaphor for the industry itself. When you have someone this fresh, though, who's 16, 17 years old, and she doesn't start out like Katy Perry, she's not in a Disney show like Miley Cyrus. She just comes as soon as the starting pistol goes off and goes right into, I'm possessed by a devil, not only a devil, but a devil that's she says this in the song, that is so powerful that the contract I made is essentially void. So I don't even have the opportunity to live the life I want to live before the demon takes my soul. I have to give the demon my soul now or extend this worth by committing human sacrifice. All of that, plus the drugs, plus the alcohol, plus the handlers and the ritual sex and all of that, which we would find with Miley Cyrus or other pop stars, very, very typical, Britney Spears, etc. All of that, plus the demonic possession, the black eyes, the 19th century archback, witchcraft, demonic levitation, all of that, guys, is in one nice little package video called Bury a Friend. And guess what? It's not marketed towards 30 or 40-year-olds. It's marketed towards teenagers. So there obviously is something more than just metaphor here.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's worth us going over some of the lyrics like we did the other night, because the song opens up and Joe, I sent this to you to show to Ange and things, and I sent it to Scott, and you guys have known me for years. I don't look at this stuff normally and go, oh, freaking out, this is all kind of like symbolism, and check all this stuff out. I've never sent you any character like this before to look at. So you can tell right away there's something different for me anyway with this character, and it's that difference that we're going to kind of emphasize and really kind of look into tonight.
Yeah.
But it says here, what do you want from me? Why do you run from me? What are you wondering? What do you know? Why aren't you scared of me? Why do you care for me? When we fall asleep, where do we go? And Ryan, as you said to me, that's not Billie Eilish speaking there at that point. This is actually like some demonic entity.
Yeah, it's a demonic entity. And in fact, this song was initially filmed in a video for her official page, but she's done several live performances of this. One of them she did, I believe it was at her house, maybe. It was a very nice place. If not, maybe her producer or handler's house or one of her bandmates' house. And there's a scene where she goes and she sings in a mirror, and she talks about dying last, or dying first, being the first to die or the last to live, or something like that, which has a possessive element to it we could talk about as well. But the significance is she sings into the mirror. And that relates to what you say, because there's a song called My Darling, a very famous song by Eminem, where the whole song is about literally Eminem selling his soul to a demon. And in return for his soul, he obtains wealth, he obtains fame, and pretty much everything he ever wanted. And then in that process, he realizes, I don't really want this. Be careful what you wish for. And so he attempts to kill himself, and he shoots himself in the video, but he can't kill himself because he's possessed by a demonic entity. And when he's talking to the demon, and the demon is talking back, like in the beginning of this song with Billie Eilish, he's looking in a mirror, which also is very interesting, because if you've seen the Venom movie, Black Goo Venom, Eddie Brock, when he's possessed by Venom, the first time he hears Venom's voice, his eyes go white and he's looking in the mirror. And it's identical imagery to when Eminem is looking in the mirror talking to the demon and his eyes go white, which if you look at the Billie Eilish album cover, her first album, her eyes are completely white as she's jumping out of a bed in what looks like a psych ward. A little bit different than her eyes black here, denoting full demonic.
Well, it's funny you should mention that, because that's one of the pictures I pulled up earlier today. And you see her with the white eyes here, guys. And obviously I can't play the videos. I can't play the music for copyright. It's just never going to get by the algorithm, unfortunately. But I urge you all to go and check out our stuff. We're going to be showing still images. And
we got the lyrics, too.
Yeah, we've got the lyrics, but we've got the white eyes here. And then it's this one here that's disturbed me. This is from this same video that, in my opinion, now I get it, folks. I get it. They're clever with CGI and everything else, right? But I think this is as close as I've seen to somebody being under full possession than I could ever compare anything else to. It's beyond.
So do the white eyes kind of represent like an empty husk or something ready to be possessed? You know, that the person has opened themselves up and that they're ready to be possessed by something. And then of course the black eyes would represent, you know, full possession or something has fully taken over them.
Yeah, that's a great point, Scott. The fact that the eyes are white, as distinguished from the eyes being black, it's like an empty vessel. And then in the album, then she's fully possessed. And also, just another interesting little note, she's under the bed. We worry about monsters under our bed. In the song by Rihanna and Eminem again, where Eminem once more talks to a demon and says that he's pretty much, because he comes back into rap, so he's pretty much done with life. He's got everything he ever wanted. So why not just keep, he says, conjuring. And as he says conjuring, the demon takes over and speaks 2 lines for him, talking about his mind and how his brain's been taken over, essentially. And when Rihanna sings the chorus, she says, "I'm friends with a monster under my bed." So it's very similar to Billie Eilish, Under the Bed, the Monster, which also is what they refer to the monster in Stranger Things, the shadow monster. And that's something that relates furthermore to the Umbrella song by Rihanna, because umbrella, 2 different words, one means male, one means female, and the umbrella signifies a shadow world, otherwise the upside down.
And another thing that I find interesting was the lyric referring to like where do we go when we sleep?
And that's the name of
and you know, even when I was reading out that first verse there, that song stuck in my head. I can actually hear it playing in my head. There's something about it. But this is also a song that says, "Bury a friend, try to wake up, cannibal class, killing the sun, bury a friend, I want to end me."
Yeah, so you have the suicide in there as well. And then she says, "I want to end me, I want to end me, I want to end me, I want to."
And this is one of the big reasons why I'm keen to do this show again, because we already see suicide rates absolutely skyrocketing when it comes to young people.
It's the 10th leading cause of death in the United States now.
800,000 people a year. I was watching on a TED Talk today.
Well, that's more than heart disease.
Yeah, it's unacceptable. And yet here we have like a pop sensation. So this is somebody that's in young girls' bedrooms, highly influential. And it's almost glorifying the whole suicide thing. Much like we see in some of the Netflix shows as well, 13 Reasons Why. It's this dark culture has been pushed and it's been encouraged. And where it takes us 1-2 generations from now, I said to you today, Ryan, I mean, how much more bizarre can things get at this point?
And if I may, I'd like to point out something. Right now, I am wearing a shirt that was kindly given to me by the Ground Zero crew, Ron and Clyde Lewis. It's the Surviving Momo Tour. Remember,
nice.
By the way, the fact that this is on YouTube right now, this is just a myth. It doesn't actually exist. But the whole point of the Momo Challenge, much like Slender Man and all the rest, was like the blue whale, suicide. And it relates to social media and memes, and is relatable to the Bird Box movie, because when you remove the blindfold, what happens? You see the monsters, which have the tentacles like Slender Man, and you commit suicide. And so that's in the pop music. I want to end me. I want to. It's the same force. You can call it Momo, which is Mandarin for devil, or demon. There's a story about these 2 girls in Florida who make a plan to kill their entire class, as many kids as they can, eat the flesh and drink the blood. Literally, this was in mainstream news, ABC News, Florida. And then they were going to stand in the entrance to the school on top of dismembered classmates, kids, slit their own throats so that they could meet the devil. And there was no mention of Momo, no mention of Slender Man, no mention of anything except they wanted to commit suicide and commit murder. And they said they wanted to meet the devil. Now, that's interesting because in the Momo stories, people commit suicide to meet Momo. But Momo means in Chinese or Mandarin, devil. So really, it's about meeting the devil. And it doesn't matter if you call it the devil, Momo, Slender Man, Black Goo, Venom, or you call it something else. It's the same force, guys.
And this isn't
it's the same entity.
This isn't just us, Scott. I mean, there's an article here for people to check out as well. The disturbing meaning of Billie Eilish's "Bury a Friend," and it says here Billie Eilish has been identified by mainstream media as the future of pop, and that's important as well because I want us to demonstrate that there's been a change. Something's definitely shifted here. And her video, "Bury a Friend," is a disturbing mix of mind control trauma and demonic possession. Here's a look at the dark world of Billie Eilish. Now,
it's a great website.
Yeah, I keep on saying I want to emphasize this change, Ryan. And I think the best person to demonstrate this, and you've already mentioned her, and it's Miley Cyrus. Now, Miley Cyrus, for me, is somebody who's always been a perfect candidate, in my opinion, for somebody who's been under some form of mind control, probably abused back in the day, and she's a product of all of that. And she's one of the last wave of pop sensations sent out to mold a generation, but she's entirely different from what we see with Billie Eilish. Wouldn't you agree?
Entirely so. You and I were talking about this before the show, and on my Billie Eilish show last week on The Secret Teachings, and on my Miley Cyrus show Wednesday called Confessions of a Mind-Controlled Pop Star, I talked about that, and I brought this point to the forefront of the broadcast, and that is when you look at Miley Cyrus, and you look at people like Katy Perry, and you look at people like even Lady Gaga, these people have a certain image, and it's very, very similar, and you get hints and views of the demonic side on occasion. But like we said at the beginning of the broadcast tonight with Billie Eilish, there's no hint at anything. There's no insinuation. It's literally spiders crawling out of her mouth. It's trauma-based mind control. It's references to the devil. It's references and direct statements that I've sold my soul to the devil. Black eyes, levitation, and presenting this to, again, kids. There's a huge difference.
Yeah, it's that whole side. It's that whole side of it just being presented out in the open, right? Yeah. Whereas the other pop stars, it's kind of hidden in the background and you can see hints of it, but now it's like on full display with this Billie Eilish thing.
Yeah, you have to work for it with the other celebrities. With this girl, it's like it's right there. And also it's significant to note that in the Black Mirror episode, if I can just briefly explain this, in Black Mirror with Miley Cyrus, I have the quote here. She did an interview just the other day, actually, and she was asked about playing the part of this pop star who was under mind control in the new episode.
Fantastic episode. Fantastic.
Yes. Absolutely a fantastic episode. One of my favorites.
Yep.
And I said, when I watched it, I said, well, that's basically Miley Cyrus's life. Well, she actually gave an interview where she said, she told the magazine Elle this, which is also referenced perhaps Billie Eilish. But anyway, she said, they gave me the script and were like, let us know if you're interested. And I read it and was like, it's not even if I'm interested or not. It's just that no one else can play this because this is my life. Like, you just took my life. And so the whole episode is she's under mind control. She has a handler. She doesn't take her drugs. And so they induce a coma and put her in the hospital, and they tell her fans and the media that it's an allergic reaction. Interesting, because according to Miley Cyrus, they didn't consult with her to write this. So they literally did base it on her life, because in 2014, she was in the hospital, and they said she had an allergic reaction. And she never disputed that that was because of an allergic reaction or if that was because of drugs. So that's open to speculation. But remember, 2 other people recently also went to the psych ward, and then they came out and they were nice and calm. One of them, the most recent, Kanye West. Kanye West went to the psych ward, Comes out, blonde hair. Britney Spears, many, many years ago, she refused to take her drugs. She goes to the psych ward. Remember, she lost her mind, shaved her blonde hair off. Katy Perry with the blonde hair, Eminem blonde hair. It's the same thing over and over. It's the same archetype, Marilyn Monroe, sex kit, and mind control. And all that relates to this as well, guys. It's very, very important. And then it's also furthermore important to recognize that in the Black Mirror episode, the ultimate transformation is when she's in a coma and they start stealing her thoughts through her brain. And Miley Cyrus actually made a video where her brain was stolen. She's got blue pills on the bed as opposed to red pills, similar to the Poppy video. I know I'm throwing out a lot here, but just reference points you can look up. And then she furthermore goes on to be turned into a holographic projection and sold as a holographic projection and an autonomous AI robot. So all of that connects to the Miley Cyrus episode of Black Mirror.
Joe, you really need to watch this one because it does.
Yeah, for real.
Not only does it like totally echo her life story, it's a very honest portrayal by her. I think she's actually really good at acting in it. It's the first time I've ever said I've liked the Miley Cyrus acting, let me tell you that, folks. But Joe, that as well, you know, the AI side of things. We're talking about Billie Eilish today, this new generation of pop star. But we're probably only one generation away from it being totally synthetic. You know, we can have the AI making the voice. We can have the AI making the face. It can be holographic.
Make everything.
Yeah, exactly, dude.
They're already doing this. Simon Cowell, the guy that did American Idol, he owns one of the top companies that does the holographic projections of Elvis or Michael Jackson, whoever it might be, Celine Dion even.
There's a huge industry for that.
And Joe, you've got young girls. I mean, what do you make of this when you kind of see the lyrics and see what's been kind of pushed in these?
It's disgusting. It's disgusting. It's why we work so hard to try and isolate them from that. You know, it's harder and harder to maintain the innocence of our young now. That's the hard thing. You know, pop culture has really they're blown by any sort of barriers that were put up at any given time. You know, it seems like anything goes at this point.
And Armand in the chat says MK Ultra in action. And I would say that when it comes to Miley Cyrus. But here's the difference, because it's almost, and I'm going to say almost because I don't know for a fact, but it's almost as if this Billie Eilish, she's literally indwelt with something, Ryan. It's almost as if she isn't possessed, she's certainly playing a good bloody part.
Yes, exactly. She's playing a good part if she's not possessed. Can you bring that image back up of her black eyes?
Yep, certainly, man.
If we go back to that song, Bury a Friend, amongst the other demonic-related lyrics, like where she's talking, having a conversation with the demon, and that's the image right there. She says, keep you in the dark, what had you expected? Me to make you my art and make you a star and get you connected? That's the demon, obviously. He says, I'll meet you in the park, I'll be calm and collected. He's going to basically renegotiate the contract with Billie Eilish. This is the impression I get, because the next part is, but we knew right from the start that you'd fall apart because I'm too expensive. She's not referring to the industry. She's not referring, I don't think, to a boy, which is usually the excuse. It's a metaphor for a boy. So she goes on, and that image that you brought up with the black eyes, when I watched that for the first time, and I watched it over and over, and I even told my audience, I ended up watching it 25 times, I think I counted. And I did it a couple of times, not because I needed to, but because I wanted to. It was just in my head. And when that happened, I got like the hair on my arm raised. It's that disturbing. And she says this, in that image, she's levitating and she rotates all the way around. And she says this, the debt I owe, gotta sell my soul, 'cause I can't say no, I can't say no. Obviously, she sold her soul. Now, there's two other lines that are really important, and they relate to Eminem and Venom again, Black Goo. Then my limbs all froze, and my eyes won't close, and I can't say no, I can't say no. And that's what Eminem says in the song Rain Man, referring back to the Umbra or the Umbrella, where he says, I ain't got no legs or no arms. Nice to meet you. I forgot my name. And that is so key. He forgot his name. What does a name give us? A name gives us dominion and power, like Adam. naming the animals and the insects and the plants. Adam has dominion over those objects, over those life forms. The name is actually an old Hebrew reference to a plaque worn around the neck, and it would signify ownership of a slave. So if you had given somebody a name, you owned that slave. Now, in demonology, I'm sure you're all aware, in demonology, when you have the name of the demon, you have power over that demon. I referenced the movie The Conjuring, where the character, Lorraine Warren's character, she is having this vision of the demon that becomes the nun in the new movie, and she asks the demon for its name, which in the hierarchy of spirits, in the name of Jesus Christ, tell me your name, demon. The demon does tell her his name, but he tricks her in the process. And she finds out later in the movie the demon did give her his name, and she scratched it into a Bible, and the demon's name was Valak. And when she says, I know your name, demon, Valak, she has power over Valak, and she can send Valak back to hell. Now, in the case of Billie Eilish and in the case of Eminem, where Eminem says, I forgot my name, hi, my new name is, and then it stops, and in a different voice he says, Rain Man. That's the Rain Man character. That's the demon. And that's the same demon in this case you have with Billie Eilish. The debt I owe, got to sell my soul. I can't say no. I can't say no. And I always thought it was really funny, just another little thing. In the Venom movie, at the very end, Eminem did the song called Venom. He did a whole song for the movie, got paid a bunch of money. And right before that song plays, one of the trailers that they would play to promote the movie was Eddie Brock and Venom in a store, and they were talking to this guy who was robbing the store, and he says to the guy, we're going to eat both of your legs and both of your arms, and then we're going to eat your head right off your
See, there's this
body.
cannibal thing again, and we've also got the black goo that you can't fail to notice when you look at Venom. I mean, this is why things are so weird. I mean, Joe, you're sitting kind of quiet listening to this. We've heard about people selling their soul and thing before, right? But can you see why myself and Ryan are really feeling that this is going to a whole new level with this kind of the new characters on the block, so to speak?
Yeah, I guess so, because it wasn't so openly spoke about before.
You used to have to work hard to decode it, right? You'd be like, oh, look, there's a triangle in the background there. Now,
yeah, perhaps, you know, it was, but now everything's so out front and in the open. You look at like Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan openly admitted he sold his soul. You know,
and he called himself the Rain Man in one song. I just can't.
Yes, he did. Yeah, he did. So I mean, I see that happening quite often. You can hear it in the lyrics of a lot of different songs and across every genre of music.
You know what worries me as well? And this might sound weird, but the fact that it sticks in your head so easily, because we know that they can use frequencies to manipulate the mind and things. And this is pure speculation on my part. But when they start to hit tunes and tracks that go in so easily to the subconscious, to the point where when I was reading those lyrics out there, I almost started like singing, rapping it, because my mind wanted to go into that rhythm. It's almost like a spell, you know? Scott, you're muted up, I think, man. Uh-oh.
Oh, no, not again.
The cabal has shut Scotty down.
Yeah, the cabal got him, man. Look, I'm smiling. Billie Eilish has come. It's the black goo in the camera, I'm telling you, dude. So you're talking about the names of spirits here as well, Ryan, right? And last night we were talking about Aleister Crowley and his Abramelin magic. Now, we were reading something that said that he basically hijacked a ritual to summon a holy guardian angel. Now, in your travels, you've wrote in the occult kind of stuff before and things. Do you know specifically who it was that Crowley was attempting to bring into the Highland portal at Boleskine?
So it's my opinion, mixed with the very scant details we have, mixed with his own writings. He supposedly was attempting to summon, as I'm sure you guys know, the 12 dukes and kings of hell. Right?
Yeah, I've said that before. Yeah.
Which, interestingly enough, Baal is one of the kings of hell. And Baal, I believe, is also in taking full possession of people like Billie Eilish.
And I'm not sure if you mentioned this yet, but you also found a reference to Baal offering fame, right?
Yeah, that's
Joe's
right.
been fully possessed up in the top corner here. I don't know what's really going on with him. People can't quite see it.
I thought something was wrong with my screen for a second.
It's just Joe being Joe, you know.
You guys got
me.
You got all this fancy technology here. I can barely get the computer on.
Yeah, so as we were saying there, Ryan, I mean, Crowley, Bal, fame. Is that why we see all of these people in Hollywood and in the music industry then going down this road, going down the Crowley kind of road?
Yes and no. I mean, I don't necessarily think it's all because of Crowley.
No.
Crowley, he made it very popular, right? But the idea that you can obtain fame, wealth, whatever you want from a demon has been popular throughout history.
Yeah.
Whether it's the Faustian deal or the Urbain Granger deal, which supposedly, if you look up Urbain Granger, there's actually a contract that they claim hundreds of years ago was actually signed by various demons in Latin in reverse, and they used that in court. They claim they found it at his home and like locked up, and they used that against him.
What's the name of that, Ryan?
Urbain Granger.
Urbain Granger. Mm.
All right, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Scotty boy.
Okay. All right, cool.
So I think what it is basically you find this whether it's in music, it's in business.
So hang on a minute here. I mean, this is meant to have been signed by like these 12. Is this the 12 Dukes kind of thing that Crowley was trying to get?
That's signed by Asmodeus. I believe Lucifer supposedly signed it himself. It's a really old document.
Right?
Whoa!
And demonic pacts are written usually in the user's blood. It's written in Latin and it's written in reverse Latin.
See, he doesn't look like a good dude. You can just tell by that kind of pointy little goatee he's got.
The Urbain what?
Granger.
Urban Grandier. And he was a French Catholic priest who was burned at the stake after being convicted of witchcraft. Oh, dude, you were before your time. You'd been a cardinal in today's Catholic Church, for goodness sake.
Actually, he had been accused of using bewitchments to molest nuns. So he would have been very high up. He might have been Pope if he was alive.
I think you're right. It says here the circumstances for Father Grandier's trial and execution have attracted the attention of writers Alexandre Dumas, Perret, Aldous Huxley. Not the first time we've mentioned him tonight, boys. And the playwright John Whiting. Yeah, that's the first time I've heard of him, Ryan. That's really interesting, that.
Yeah, I have a whole section on demonic pacts in my book, Occult Arcana, which I'll show you there on screen. I've got the contract in there and some other images, the Faustian deal with the devil. To your question, though, about Crowley, I think that's why a lot of people have found themselves drawn to Crowley. As far as I'm concerned, Crowley unveiled a lot that was, let's say, secret in the magical arts, but in a lot of ways, he was also a fraud. He was also a British intelligence officer, I think.
Big time, yeah.
So there was a shift, it seems, within a certain period of time within the last 100 years, where things that Crowley would do, which have always been very, very well received by royalty and people in positions of power, because they'll do anything, not because they're evil per se, just because they'll do anything to maintain power. You know, astrologers using little kids as entrails to divine the future, anything that can get them and, get them power and maintain power. But there's been a shift because a lot of this has been adopted where you have open, not secret, you have open acknowledgement of people like Aleister Crowley working not only with British intelligence, but Crowley working with people in the United States who were connected to ultimately NASA, JPL, various intelligence agencies. I mean, we're talking about people that do things where if you were to say, hey, let's go down and perform a satanic ritual in the park, we're going to murder some kids and we're going to cut up little dogs into pieces and we're going to drink people's blood, you go to jail. And if you even suggest that anybody else should do something like that or anybody else has done something like that, you'll be told you're crazy. But the history of NASA and JPL, a lot of people know about Paperclip in 45, but I don't think a lot of people know about Crowley working with L. Ron Hubbard, founder of Scientology, working with Whitehead Parsons, Jack Parsons, and the founding of the Church of Thelema, or the lodge in Pasadena, the Agape Lodge in Pasadena, where they conducted various rituals. They were investigated by the FBI. These weren't just random people getting together and like, yeah, let's have some random magic sex. These are people getting together with a lot of power and a lot of money. And we see a continuation of that today at places like Bohemian Grove, which was famously exposed visually by Alex Jones. But I think, again, back to your question to really conclude, there's a shift where none of this is hidden anymore. And in any society where the power structure is threatened by intelligence, by creativity, by the individual person's power to create and to grow, they resort to various forms of debauchery. We saw this in Russia in 1919, 1917, 18, 1920, Russian Revolution, right? We saw this in the Weimar Republic after World War I in Germany. We saw this in the early years of the 21st century creeping up, and now today we see it full scale, pedal to the proverbial metal in the United States of America.
Anytime you have a void that springs up within your vessel, if you will, whether it be spiritual, physical, or whatever, mental, it doesn't matter. You seek to fill it with anything that will numb that pain or that emptiness. And you know, that's what we do. That's what humans do. So they'll look for anything like that. And in those situations, there really isn't much good. So you kind of lash out. And that's that's how, at least in my humble opinion, that's how humans do it. We do it all the time. We find vices and things, to fill that void. Or contracts.
Contract with the devil, Joe. And I would imagine, right?
It's a good point, Joe.
And let me explain before people shake their heads and roll their eyes. But in a way, Crowley probably would have been a form of Savile or Epstein of his time, because he was going to all these wild sex parties. He was rubbing shoulders with the elites there. And I'm sure he was doing the exact same.
But I would be interested to know where it started. Like, what was that pivotal moment that made him go down that road?
He was rubbing a lot of stuff. It wasn't just shoulders, but yes.
Yeah. Indeed. So do you think there was one episode, Joe, or I just think some people are born nasty, dude?
I do too. Well, the Bible says there are vessels for honor and there's vessels for dishonor. And there's no doubt Crowley, we know we know where he fell.
I think Crowley perhaps had a sense of abandonment from childhood, so that creates a void. Mm-hmm. I mean, that alone psychologically could create the situation that ultimately was Aleister Crowley. But you go beyond Crowley, things that Crowley didn't even do that were taking place at the same time, like the Philadelphia experiment in 1943, portals to other worlds, things like that. And that all connects to UFOs. Crowley died in 1947 when we had Roswell. In 1909, 1910, Crowley went to Algeria, where he supposedly opened a portal to hell, allowed himself to be possessed by the devil. And all of that just goes back to the 1500s with Dr. John Dee and Edward Kelly. Going more to what Joe said, where does all this start? It isn't with Aleister Crowley. It isn't with Jack Parsons. That's just kind of a popular narrative today. I mean, this goes back, and in the 1500s, this was being done. It's long before that. I mean, if you look at the demons in like Mesopotamia, not only did they have demons in Mesopotamia, they had volumes of information about these demons. This was more than just mythos.
No, this was a mythos. Yeah. Well, and like anything else, myth is always grounded in truth in some way, shape, or form. And you kind of have to glean through that. And if you take a look and you follow this stuff back far enough, I think you come to find out, Kev, that what you're dealing with are the fallen ones of Enoch. Yeah,
I mean it goes back thousands of years, right? I mean, we're talking about like the mystery schools, and the occulted knowledge and all of this stuff. I mean, you look at the human sacrifice that was, we were just talking about human sacrifice, right? With these
the cairns,
with the cairns, you know, and human sacrifice that has went back to ancient civilizations and all of this stuff. I mean, this is all where it originates from, right? We talk about the debauchery, the way that civilizations have went, where we're at right now. I mean, this has occurred in civilizations in the past, right? And if you even look in the biblical sense, right, Sodom and Gomorrah, it's the same thing. This is the same stuff. That this is a cycle that keeps replaying itself, and we're just entering that phase once again. And so that's a sign that down the road, how much longer do we got before the reset button is hit again? Just makes you wonder.
That picture, I don't know if listeners could see it, but you just had that picture up on the Skype there, Kev, with
I can bring that one up, dude. Don't you worry. I'll get that up just now.
So if you can bring that image up and show that to everyone.
Yep, there you go.
Okay, so that is a photo shoot she did for Garage magazine, and I want to show you something else. If you look, you don't have to see it to understand what I'm saying, but just as an example, this is the book I wrote called The Technological Elixir. I got the mirror, the black goo, and the cube. And then there's the subtitle on the bottom of the book. The subtitle is Black Goo, Transhumanism, and Invoking AI. There's a huge connection, intimate connection between the black goo as metaphor, symbolism, and as a literal physical thing, and technology. And so when you look at Billie Eilish here, you see she's got 3 heads, and that has 2 significant elements to it. Number one, the third head in the middle is robotic. So she's a machine. If you look at the heads on the side, that is reminiscent of a lot of things. Janus in Rome, perhaps, the god that sees in 2 directions.
She's mother, daughter, and the holy AI.
Yeah, there she goes. She's the sacred trinity.
Yep.
And where do you find a mockery of the sacred trinity? The kings of hell. And the kings of hell, one king in particular, as I mentioned, Baal. You show that picture of Baal, Kev.
Yep.
Baal has 3 heads. Baal appears as a toad, as a cat, or as a humanoid figure, often with a crown and the legs of a spider. This is from Colin de Plancy's Dictionary Infernal, published in 1863 in Paris. And that was the updated version that I don't know if you can get your hands on a copy.
So where does the Baal image that people come up with today, where does that come into play?
Is that like the goat Mendes one?
Yeah, with the basically the goat head and that kind of thing.
Oh, like a Baphomet image?
Like a Baphomet almost. Yeah, because a lot of people, what they do is they'll get, you go.
Like that kind of thing?
Yes.
Oh, I see. Okay, so that's a fantastic question. So there I think there are a couple different reasons why. I think one.
Whoa! Thank you very, very much. Very much. No message with it, so I can't read anything out. On you go, Ryan.
All right. Was that a donation?
Yes, it was. That's a super chat. Yes, and if anyone wants to support the stream, just hit the super chat, or PayPal is in the description. And remember, we only need 3 more members and we'll get the new emoji. And it won't be the one that myself and Scott were discussing last night off air, but it will be something equally funny and not quite as offensive as myself and Scott were planning. But bow, Ryan.
So if you have, let's look at theology. In monotheism, mono means one, you have one God, right? In polytheism, you have multiple gods. Now, a lot of, let's say, ancient cultures, let's call them ancient cultures, they were considered and are considered today polytheistic. But at the upper echelons, they were actually monotheistic. In other words, polytheism is a complex form of monotheism, because in polytheism, all the different gods that span out in all directions like tentacles and vines are actually emanations of a central god.
Right.
So in demonology, you have a very similar thing. You have kings of hell, you have princes of hell, and the ones below are emanations of the ones above. And since Baal is a very, very powerful god, a very, very powerful demon, and they even say that in the Billie Eilish song, Bury a Friend, there are various demonic forces under him. He controls legions of demons that are essentially his emissaries on Earth. So they work through him, kind of like those new monsters in Stranger Things 3, working from the upside down in our world, controlled by the hive mind of the monster from the shadow world. So I think to answer your question, that's what Baal is. Also mixed with the fact that there are other entities that take on his name and, of course, fall under his leadership, like Belphegor. And Belphegor out of Assyria is also Baal, and that's what Kev said earlier. Belphegor is invoked by people who wish to find fame and wealth. Specifically, though, through creativity.
Ooh, this is the creepiest version of Baal that I've seen.
I've seen, yeah, but that's what I'm saying is like I'm used to seeing the creepy version, not the kind of geeky version that was there from 1862. See that one there, that just doesn't do it for me. That's not like, that's just kind of like the hodgepodge Baal.
I like
that's
these.
Kind of like that's the CRISPR Baal right there. Is what that was.
Yeah, it is. It is. I had to think about what you were saying for a second, but yeah, it's. But just so we don't get hit with someone saying, "Hey, you got the date wrong." That was published in 1863, but the initial publication was, I believe, 1816 or 1818. So it's much
1818. Yeah. It's
like
strange.
that there Black's Law Dictionary. You know, it's still around today, but gosh darn it, it sure did start out a long time ago.
So can you pull up the Crown video, Kev? I don't know if Joe,
I'll pull it up. Yeah, I'll pull this up. Whoa, this is. Here we go.
Oh man, that was freaking me out, dude.
Here, oh boy.
And that, by the way, I read an interview about that. That's real. They say that was not CG. That was completely real. All these spiders are real.
I'm arachnophobic, so that video really tripped me out.
That's disturbing.
I've got the lyrics here. I know you can't play it.
I wish I could. So wish I could, because it's so creepy.
Ugh.
Yeah, and unfortunately, talking about this, so there's two things. Talking about this promotes it, but it does something else. We talked about names of demons, and when you have the demon's name, you have power over the demon. And like I said on my show, in the name of Jesus Christ, and I'm not a Christian, in the name of Jesus Christ, as an example, in the name of God, our Heavenly Father, Tetragrammaton, Adonai, tell us your name, demon. Now, the demon in this song tells us its name. Its name is Baal. And when we have the name of the demon, we can exorcise the demon thereof. And they're from, in this case, Billie Eilish. So let's look at that song. That is just unbelievable. Here's the lyric for the song. And it doesn't maybe seem initially like it means much, but if you listen to the details and then compare what she looks like to the images of Baal, I don't know. I think it's a slam dunk. Maybe other people.
Okay.
So here's what she says. I'll just read you a couple lines. Cold in my kingdom size. So he's cold in his kingdom size. His kingdom is pretty small. He's inhabiting this 17-year-old girl. Fell for these ocean eyes. That was the name of the song she did before, in my opinion, she became possessed or got really, really dark. So everybody fell for that. Oh, she's a great artist. She's so talented. And then they're brought into the demonic possession. And then it starts with this boom, 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 this bass that Poppy plays. Poppy actually has two videos where she says, time for the programming. Are you ready? And then it goes boom, 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 boom on the screen. And she says, you did so well. Come back for programming round 2. It's the same boop, 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 boop in this song. So here's what she says. She says, you should see me in a crown. I'm going to run this nothing town. Watch me make them bow down one by one by one. Now, my impression was, speaking of a kingdom, speaking of a crown, the spiders crawling all over her and in her mouth. And I also thought one of the keys here was that the look on her face is that she's out of it.
Yep.
But specifically, if you watch like a horror movie or where there's like someone possessed by a demon, and the demon laughs through the person, and you know it's not the person laughing, the demon arrogantly laughs. That's the look she has on her face.
It's like a smirk, Ryan, isn't it? It's like at the end of things, she kind of gives a little smirk. It's almost like there's something in there. You totally get it, and I wish I could play it for the audience, but you can find it's everywhere. I mean, it's only had, 125 million views. And that's why this is important, because I mean, this is really influential on younger minds. And what she's singing about... On you go, Ryan.
No. I'm sorry, Kev. I don't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No. On you go.
I was just going to say, if you can show the crown, and then you got the tarantula there. That's important. It comes out of her mouth, and there's the crown she puts on with all the spiders on it. And then, if you go back to the image of Ball, what do you see?
Just out of curiosity, how much does one have to be paid to have a tarantula in one's mouth?
There's not enough money in the world, dude.
Because I'm failing to see a monetary figure formulate in my head as far as what it would take for me to put an effing spider of that size.
And it's not that, right? It's not that, but she actually acts all sexy when the legs of it are on her lips, like she's rubbing the legs on her lips, and she's... It sounds weird, but she's like getting horny with a spider.
The spider, yeah.
But there's just, but I see the connection. I definitely see that connection that you're talking about, Ryan. It's certainly black and white in my eyes. Now understanding, it's crazy the programming that actually exists and how particularly effective it is to the young mind. And what it does to the young mind too. It's it really when I look back at my teenage years, that was the heyday of MTV.
Yep.
And
look how it's changed, Joe. Look how it's changed from then to now.
Sure, but I mean, still a lot of the same techniques were used against us, Kev. That, you know what I mean? Only it was at that time, it was the television that did it. But I mean, it was pop culture that drove everything, and gosh.
Well, I mean, if you look at it, I mean, look at how much of this stuff Madonna started, right?
But you just see how much it shapes everything.
Yep.
Society itself. It's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. And Madonna was like the prototype or whatever. She was the original
Illuminati princess.
And she sort of
was never into that though, like the Madonna thing. It was always hair metal.
I know. I mean, I wasn't either, but I mean, just if you look back in hindsight, I mean, she did all of these sort of controversial things that set the stage for all of these other pop stars to do, right? So, Madonna pushed the edge of like sexuality on.
Right.
You know what I mean? And doing those doing like those nude photo shoots and pushing the edge of what she could do on television and pushing the culture, pushing society and pushing culture into that, where we're at today, right? When we talk about
that, it's funny you say that. I gotta highlight something because I recently watched Rob Halford and Judas Priest do the British Steel Tour in '82, and I watched one of it, and I'll tell you what, Halford always came in on a Harley, and everybody was like, it's Halford, Judas and all this kind of stuff, but man, he got off that Harley, and he was all leathered out. I mean, like leathered out, and just strutted his shit as gay as humanly possible, and no one knew that the man was, but I mean, he floated when he walked. You could just see it, and all his mannerisms. It was just blatant, yet no one knew.
Well, yeah, because it was under the guise of a on-stage showman, right? He was putting on the show or whatever, but
I mean, it was just like, wow. You look at it now and you're like, holy crap, how did no one know at the time? But you're right, it was because of people like you just said, Madonna and others that broke those and shattered those barriers, and then all of a sudden it was like the blinders are off, that innocence is gone, and it's like whoa. And
then you see like the wheel come full circle, right? Because Madonna's still doing that whole controversial stuff, I mean, and she's like 60 years old now. But remember, there was the big sort of thing where her, I guess you could say, protege, right? You know, Britney Spears, her and Britney Spears kissed each other on stage, and
right.
Yeah. So it was like, it's like, wow.
Madonna's in the third stage of the Trinity. She's past the mother, the maiden. She's at the crone, the old witch.
Yeah.
She's in that. She's on the way out.
Yeah.
Billie Eilish and others are on the way in. Did you see the Miley Cyrus interview where just recently she talked about how she wanted to break away from playing Hannah Montana, and that's why she left the show in 2011 when she turned 18. And she said she wanted to be free of all that and be her own person. And so I guess her own person is everybody else in the industry, where she just does a lot of drugs, drinks a lot of alcohol, and upgrades and graduates to the big time, where she can be another kind of mind-controlled celebrity. It's really weird and disturbing.
And she's also pushing this thing to where it's like you have no identity, right?
Big time.
Yeah. So, the whole confusing of like, genders and all that stuff. She pushes that whole agenda to where she's like, well, I'm not really I don't identify as a female or a male, or I just identify with whatever I feel like being that day.
Is this Miley?
This is Miley.
Yeah, because there's one quote here from the Elle article that sums this up perfectly. And it says here, this is Miley Cyrus. She says, my record.
She broke away.
Yeah, my record is called She Is Miley Cyrus. She does not represent a gender. She is not just a woman. She doesn't refer to a vagina. She is a force of nature. She is power. She can be anything you want to be. Therefore, she is everything. She is the super she. She is the she-ro. She is the she-e-o. And then it goes on to talk about herself. She refers to herself, Scott, as a she-woman. She-e-o, though. That's got to be the most kind of weird one.
Power.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because when we talk about this in
Jesus Christ is King of Kings. Just a fact.
There we go. Atheism is madness.
But when we talk about this in terms of the demons, right?
Yep.
The demons they're not male, they're not female, they're like this weird amalgam of.
Look at Baphomet. Baphomet's got the nice perk little chest, and then he's got he's got a swinging bit as well. You see.
And as you see, like with Bale, right? It's like this weird sort of amalgam of, spider, frog, humanoid, just. So it would make sense that if something like that was to inhabit someone's body, they wouldn't identify as a male or a female or whatever. They would just be thinking themselves in terms of whatever they are, right? This entity. And so they wouldn't see themselves in this sort of male or female role in any way.
I think we can also, it's obvious, Kev, Joe, Scott, you guys don't hate people that have different sexual identifications. That's really obvious, right?
Yeah.
But going beyond that, people that have those identifications, the LGBTQ community and all the other letters now, it's like the alphabet, have been and continue to be and will have been in the past hundreds of years ago, but will be continued to be used today as a political tool to advance agendas. And that's something we can sit here and say, hey, we're on your side. You guys are being used.
Yep.
And I think one thing that's really overlooked is what doesn't have a gender. Robots don't have a gender. And so if a robot doesn't have a gender, and we see the connection, look at that Garage magazine with Billie Eilish, she's a robot. Look at the images of various other pop stars and various other musicians where they have this black goo robotic essence to them in a lot of their music. You see that in movies and television as well. There's a connection.
This one here as well, dude. Poppy, you mentioned her. We didn't.
Go ahead,
she is. Yeah, we hadn't shown her, but I think she's key because I think she really is pushing this transhumanist almost agenda.
I sent that to Mark Devlin. You guys know Mark Devlin, right?
Yeah, I've had him on the show a number of times. Brilliant. He's genius at this stuff, dude. And he works in the industry, you know?
Yeah. He blew me away on the Paul McCartney stuff. That's like one of his favorite topics. I don't have much knowledge of that, but I do know that this Poppy song. So I sent that to him, and it took him a couple of days to respond, and he responded back eventually. He said it's like, he said exactly what I was thinking, what I had said the night before. He said something like, what that girl is or isn't, it's like she's a robot. I don't know.
Well, look at that picture there, okay? Look at that picture there, and keep that in mind, folks, because she reminds me of Sanctuary AI. And if we come to their images here, we'll see one of them. She reminds me of this. And that's a robot there on the right-hand side.
That is essentially what she is, I think. And you know what, Kev? I'm really glad you brought that up, because very briefly, I have the lyrics to that song that you're talking about. Here's some images I printed out as well as what you're showing on the screen.
And, I mean, look at her there. She doesn't, I mean, there's something, sorry, Ryan, but her skin looks too, it's almost like, I would call her a synth. If somebody lined her up in 10 like other girls, I mean, she's an absolute, don't get me wrong, she's a lovely looking lassie. Not criticizing her, but there's something off about her. There's something weird.
She has so many different songs where she sings to a boy who is a computer. She sings to the internet. On other songs, she sings as a computer or as the internet or as AI. And in the Time Is Up song, I got, like I was going to say, I said I have the lyrics here. You saw that song, Kev, and you know, initially the lyrics are, in the factory, in the sterile place where they made me, I woke up alone. See, I first heard that, I listened to the song, and I thought, oh, just another mind-controlled pop star. And then I realized, kind of like Billie Eilish, no, it's a little bit more than just mind control. She says, dizzy from the programming, have I been wiped again? I don't even know. It's a mystery. Everyone around me is so busy. Is this my home? It basically is, in the first verse, her becoming aware as AI. She's coming online.
Well, it's funny you use that language, because Sanctuary AI, again, they have a mind log, a mind file. And at the end of each day, allegedly, that's dumped. It's wiped. That's their own words, dude.
Oh, I didn't know that. That is really disturbing, Kev.
Yep. That's their own.
You know this. You know what this makes me think about, and you know, I'm one of these guys. I'm into my anime. Mm-hmm. I've always been into my anime, right? So, and there was an anime from the 90s, and I think there's a lot of animes from the 90s that really touched upon a lot of the stuff that we're seeing unfold now, right? Like if you go back and watch some of these, you're like, whoa, they were really calling a lot of this stuff. But there was an anime called Macross Plus back in the 90s. And the premise behind it was there was this artificial intelligence holographic pop star that everybody loved called Sharon Apple.
There you go.
And anyways, it became sentient because the creator of Sharon Apple had actually uploaded her consciousness into the AI, right?
And that's literally what Miley Cyrus did in the Black Mirror episode. Her consciousness was uploaded.
Yep.
Yeah. And so what happened was this AI, it was able to, well, you know, it fed upon the flaws or the issues that this person had, you know, and then it ended up hacking into everything and taking over some kind of giant military base and started going crazy, you know. But you know, it just makes me think of this stuff, right? I mean, now we're into this realm where pop stars are possibly going to be these holograms, are going to be these AI generated, these robotic humanoids that are going to be, you know, side loaded, and we're just entering this weird realm now where it's almost like it's like a post-human pop culture. Getting crazy.
It is. It's poppy culture.
Poppy, yeah. Post-poppy human.
You guys remember the Beyonce drummer who I guess, I don't know if she filed like a lawsuit against Beyonce recently. Did you hear about that?
I remember something about this.
She said, I got the article here. Beyonce's former drummer claims singer molested her with quote unquote dark magic. In other words, she used magic spells and black magic rituals to harass this girl.
Now that's really interesting because of her marriage, her association with Jay-Z, and of course he's got the Rockefeller clothing range, and "Do what thou wilt" is the slogan, and that comes right from the annals of Aleister Crowley.
There you go. That's right, Kev. That's right. And then also Jay-Z was in the song with Rihanna, where Rihanna called him the Rain Man.
Mm.
And it makes you wonder.
I dropped those pics of Sharon Apple from Macross Plus, and
I'll get that. Yeah, cool. But it makes you wonder.
Because the way they represent her is very interesting. It's got like third eye symbology, and the way she even looks, kind of, if you look at the way these pop stars are representing themselves now, it's very kind of reminiscent of the way this sort of because in that anime, she was just a hologram being projected out of this black monolith computer.
The black monolith, the D-Wave.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, another thing I was thinking of is like if you wanted to make that bury a friend video. Like I understand that if you're really into like Satanism or demons or like black magic and Crowley, like you could take images from things that you've seen or things from books you've read or videos that you've watched, and you could just kind of mash that all together and you'll get the archetypes there and whatnot. But you're not going to get a concise from A to Z in chronological order succession of events like you get in some of this music, which tells me that someone on the level of Crowley's knowledge has to be involved in setting that up. Like if you were to ask me, can you do a video, Ryan? Like I think I'm at a point now where I could be hired to make that video, and I could put all the elements into it, and I know where to go to get them, and I have a vast knowledge of that particular information. So I could do that. You guys might be able to do that with your knowledge. A lot of listeners might be able to do that if they've studied things like demonology. But you don't just write a song and then it's like, ooh, accidentally we incorporated the crown and the spider and the references to the kingdoms.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, you know, these video producers and all of that stuff. I mean, to you're right. You know, that level of knowledge to incorporate all of that in there, it's not coincidence, and there's no way that's just coincidence, and just them saying, oh well, that looks cool. You know, that just seems like something neat to do. No, you're right. There definitely is some level of knowledge there that you know they work to put that in there for a reason.
Yeah, and the ball thing is just, it still blows my mind because you get the spider and the crown and whatnot and the references to kingdoms in that video. But beyond that, she did another video where she sings that song, and I think it's in her house, but she sings in the mirror. And totally in the background, one of the drummers has a shirt on, and it says something. It has different names on it, and one of the names, doesn't say ball, and then there's nothing after it. It's a name, but the way that it's cut off, I have a screenshot of it actually. It says ball, B-A-E-L, in the freaking video. I'll try to send that to you now, Kev.
And nothing happens by accident in these videos. Yeah. And I mean, there's another one here as well, Ryan. Billie Eilish, she was the face of a advertising campaign for Adobe. And she's got this common kind of theme as well, isn't she? Let's all fall asleep. When we all fall asleep. And of course, they've got the kind of barcode across her there as well. She's one to be watching, is my point, folks. If she is doing something, she needs paying attention to, Scott. She is... Like I said, Scott, I've never come to you before and said to you, Scott, you need to check out this pop song, or you need to check out this. I've never done that, have I, dude? But when it comes to this character, the first person to alert me to Billie Eilish was Bill Bean. Bill Bean was freaking out of his box, Scott. He's
dude, I can imagine that Bill would be just absolutely... I know his red flags were like, you know.
This is like one of his usual possessed clients that he was looking at, you know?
Yeah. No, there's definitely, she's taken this to a whole nother level, you know? And, oh yeah, wow, Ryan, I just saw that picture of the drummer that you just dropped in there. Yeah, that's crazy.
Oh, I'll get that. Here we go.
Underneath of the it happens.
Yeah, underneath the it just happens to cut off just coincidentally like that. And, yeah. But no, I mean she's taking it to this next level. And you know, before my audio had cut out earlier, I was going to say, you know, that we were talking about this.
A ball took down your audio.
Yes. Yes, Brian.
Oh, I like that one. And we've hit 300 watching, guys. Absolutely amazing.
Awesome.
Thank you to everyone that's tuning in. This is people love this information, and again, it's good infotainment, but there's a really, really important side to this. And again, I want to emphasize that a lot of parents listening to this, just imagine what kind of influence this could have on your kids. And that's not to go after kids that might be into these artists, you know, it's the programming. And think about somebody like this character here. Let me bring her back up. The one I'm calling the synth, Poppy. Can you imagine how effective an advertising campaign for something like Neuralink, a young, attractive girl like that would be? How cool it would make it for kids as well to go and get their Neuralink. Yeah. Plug in with Poppy. Plug in with Poppy.
Crazy.
And I'm going to have to check out as well, Ryan, this rhythmic kind of let me program you kind of stuff first. Yeah. Scott, that's quite worrying as well, dude. We know what binaural beats and tones and frequencies do or can do to the mind. And she's literally telling you, let me program you before we get into this.
Yeah. Literally.
Well, and, you know, that's the whole point. It's the whole point of pop music, right? It's to get something stuck in your head. They use a lot of the same, you know, musical sort of techniques and stuff that a lot of corporations use in their advertising. You know, like when you hear a jingle on the radio or a jingle for you know, a commercial or something, and it gets stuck in your head, right? You know, you hear, you know, how many times have you been driving around and you hear the jingle from, like, let's say McDonald's, you know,
yep.
Bop, 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 you know, they
that
use
Eilish,
a lot of
her music is just as effective, dude.
Yes, they use the exact same stuff, and you know, and if you look it up, right, it's only the same few producers. I think it's like the same like 6 producers in the entertainment and, you know, in the music industry, you know, at that level that produce everyone's music, right? Yeah. So they go to these few specific people to produce their music, and there's a reason for that. Obviously, they're very good at producing this music that gets stuck in people's heads, that programs people basically, and they play the stuff over and over in their minds. You know, it just gets stuck in their subconscious. And
I'm sorry.
Oh, no, well, I was just gonna say, you know, I had gotten into this sort of not a debate, but a little bit of a back and forth on Facebook with somebody, because I'm a fan of yeah, surely not. Scott would never do anything like that. But no, but look, I'm a fan of extreme metal, like extreme heavy metal. I've always have been, right? Underground music.
It's awful. It's awful, Ryan. Yes, it's absolutely awful.
I know.
It sounds like the Dukes of Hell have got together and struck up a chord.
and it's funny because I posted some of the music I listen to on Facebook, and somebody commented, they're like, "Scott, you seem like such a nice, you know, such a nice guy. Why do you expose yourself to such violent music, you know?" And I kind of went in there and I explained to them, I'm like, first of all, you know, the music I listen to, a lot of it is kind of frustration and anger that we have with this world, right? Like with what we see in the pop music, with what we see being done to people, and it's kind of an outlet, right? So, but if you think about it, these pop stars, you know, Miley Cyrus, Billie Eilish, and all of that stuff, they are much more detrimental to society 50-fold. I mean, I don't even think there's a number you could put on the amount of harm that they are inflicting.
I think it's just
on society and the influence they have than some underground metal band that's putting out something in their garage, you know, that's never going to get any kind of exposure. Really,
that's like really similar to the band Ghost when they went to Texas on their last tour. It's like some big mega church got together and they're like, we don't want ghosts coming here. They worship the devil. They worship Satan. But if you actually listen to what
Beelzebub got his camera there.
He pulled it there. Don't want to go too far in that one direction. You might get banned from YouTube. But
brilliant.
But yeah, I mean, but Ryan, you're right. You're right.
I'll pay the fine.
You're right though. They made all of this big scene over Ghost, right? When how come they're not out there making the same scene over Billie Eilish, which by far is way more blatant in your face
possession
than anything like that.
Yeah.
It's just straight up possession, you know. So
nothing wrong with this, Scott. Come on, there's nothing wrong with girls that drink black goo and then start levitating and breaking their back in a creepy shining hotel.
I'll just stick to listening to my grindcore and blast beats. They can listen to the Billie Eilish.
If you're going to make something like this, I'm telling you, like this is. If you ask me a question about pretty much anything else, I'm like SpongeBob in the episode where he had to lose everything that wasn't about fine dining. If you ask me a question about anything else in the world, I really don't know anything. Okay, I just know about occultism. That's my thing. If you ask me who I talked to today, I probably couldn't tell you. I can't remember. But let me show you something. If you want to make that kind of video, you don't just like, oh, let me throw some Aleister Crowley images together. You got to read stuff like this. You got to read like Cornelius Agrippa's 3 books on occult philosophy. You got to read things like this. You got to read The Mirror of Magic by Kurt Seligman. I mean, these are massive texts. You got to go through and read the Grimoires, the Grimoire Virum. You got to read The Red Dragon. You got to read The Greater Key and the Lesser Key of Solomon. You got to read Francis Barrett's The Magus. You got to read Dictionary Inferno, which I don't have a copy of. And I put all that together in my books like The Technological Elixir, and then my other massive book where all of this is the Occult Arcana. That's how you get to this information. You don't just like, oh, let's put her over there and give her black contacts, and then, hey, we can have some, we got black gloves. Yeah, we can have some guys put black gloves on and grab her from out of the darkness. No. All that stuff in one song, from suicide to demonic possession, it's highly and strategically planned and organized, and it's the same imagery, like Scott said, that you see in every other music video. The choking of the throat, the covering of the eyes, see no evil, speak no evil, and hear no evil, the covering of the ears. There are the drugs, the mind control.
The black as well. Look at it going in black to the veins.
Yeah. Syringes of black goo going into her back. I mean, my God.
Well, that takes me nicely to where I want to go next, because I had Brad Olson on during the week, Ryan. Brad, always a fascinating guest, and we were talking about his voyage to the bottom of the world. And he was talking about the Antarctic anomalies, and I brought up the Falklands War. Because the Falklands War, for me, as a young guy growing up in Britain at the time, it was really weird. Couldn't understand the big fuss about a set of rocks down in the South Atlantic near Argentina. When you looked at a map, it made absolutely no sense that we would have any claim to this kind of rocky outcrop down there near the South Pole. However, when you start to dig deeper into the story, you find that there's a connection to that part of the world, and potentially the Falklands War, to the very same black goo that we're talking about when it comes to all of the imagery we see from pop stars and Hollywood movies.
Check out the old recordings of John Todd. He covers all this from long ago. It's good shit. What up, woo crew and chat peeps? Smoke 'em if ya got 'em.
Just a guy, I love you, but you forgot, dude, you forgot your brown chicken, brown cow. And I do have a 70s porn star look that I will share with the audience before we leave today. If you can't laugh at yourself, folks, how on earth can I be politically incorrect against anyone else? So, Ryan, Black Goo, you've worked with Harold Klaus Vela. I believe you've had him on your show. He's the more recent researcher into the Black Goo. But when you've looked into this, I mean, do you trace this back to the first kind of mentionings of the Black Goo to the Falklands War? Thule Island, and of course that name Thule Island, just off the Falklands, that's a kind of a very important thing when it comes to the occult and the Nazis as well. So Black Goo, Ryan, to take us out tonight, come on, man, because we follow patterns like Clyde Lewis. We hear him talking about the patterns, and I didn't even think we would get into Black Goo with Brad Olson the other night, and yet we'd already touched on it when we'd spoke about Billie Eilish. So it came up again. So let's give the audience your take on the Black Goo from your research.
Well, initially, I saw a pattern. Nobody ever shared it with me. I didn't even see it in like a YouTube video. I just noticed it in music, and I noticed it in television, and I noticed it, and my camera's starting to slide here, and I noticed it in just a variety of entertainment outlets. And so I started to research it intentionally. And in intentionally researching it, I did come across people like Harold Counts.
Yeah.
And I came across some other people, nobody that I could even, mention, just random people who would put videos together where they're like, hey, this is weird. I saw this in like kids movies and adult movies and music videos. And so I just started kind of making a little reference guide to all the stuff that I saw. And I put a lot of that in my book, The Technological Elixir, but it's almost endless. I couldn't sit here and tell you all of it if I had a list. There's just so much. And then when I talked to Harold, I recognized that according to Harold, who's a German scientist, he claims, and he's a broadband scientist. He has a pretty good knowledge of things like Wi-Fi and cell signals. We talked about that the last time he was on, and how that relates to this in a lot of ways, like terraforming the planet. And I actually wrote Harold an email after the show, and I asked him if he could share with me some of the details of some of the things that he had information on pertaining to things like smart dust, which you've heard of that, right, Kev?
Yeah.
And what he ultimately told me was that and I'm just going to keep things extremely simple. I could find you the quote in my book here as well. In the simplest layman terms, the black goo and the neural dust, which often are, when you have neural dust, smart dust, it's like a hive of black mist that kind of circulates. You see that in some movies. It kind of is a synthetic form of life, and it overtakes organic life and replaces it with synthetics. So again, back to robots replacing humans, robots having no sex. You can mimic it, but you can't ultimately be what you look like. It's just a mimicking, which is, popular. David Icke talks about that with the archons, counter mimicry. They can only, mimic, they can't actually create. So the black goo is a form of artificial consciousness and artificial intelligence that is also organic. So it's like it's a biological synthetic substance. He says in his research that, at least metaphorically or symbolically, it goes back to even the Garden of Eden story itself and the fall of man. In terms of like physical evidence of seeing it for myself, I personally haven't bought anything I've seen online in terms of videos.
Same here, dude. And again, that's not to discount the whole topic, because I certainly don't. I do think there's a lot of veracity to this. It's just hard to get your hands on anything that you could definitively say, right, look at that. Because I'm sure the listeners out there, and I know we've got a lot of new listeners all the time. I mean, I would love to be able to say, go watch that on Black Goo. That tells you everything you need to know. And the first person that started to talk about it was somebody called David Griffin, I believe it was, out of the UK. And it kind of factored in these Marconi scientists when they brought it back here after the war. And this is allegedly, the story goes, guys, this is how it got out in the wild, right?
Oh, what was that? What was that movie? When I flew to Contact in the Desert, I was on a big plane, and I scrolled through some movies. I watched The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and then I watched like a popcorn flick. It's called like, is it Overlord, or what is that movie where these soldiers, they go into a German occupied village in France during World War II?
Yeah, that's Overlord.
Overlord.
Yeah.
Have you seen that? And what they're trying to get is the black goo that's under the village in like a river underground.
Okay, what's the name of this film, guys? I need to watch it.
What Overlord, yeah, and there was like a German scientist doing all kinds of experiments on people down there and trying to like reanimate the dead and
with goo.
With black goo, yeah. It was yeah, you gotta watch it, Kev. That's a crazy movie.
So I found the thing from Harold. I wrote this in my book, The Technological Elixir. He asked me to break it up a little bit and don't put everything exactly like he said. And there's a lot of stuff he said. I don't feel comfortable sharing it directly over email or in any capacity. So I wrote this. I said, scientist and researcher Harold Kautz explains that there are 3 generations of technologies interwoven with things like smart dust. This includes creating, quote, artificial microwave receiving and emitting neuronal networks using the components of mercury, organophosphates, piezo crystals, bioavailable barium, and strontium. Now, that's something we know is openly sprayed in aerosol programs.
Chemtrails, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Another element is Morgellons plus quantum dot dyes. Elena Freeland talked a lot about that for a microwave biophoton interface and synthetic RNA attached to the lipopeptides that act like retroviruses to integrate the receiver of a gigahertz-based set of psychotronic non-lethal frequency sequences. In discussions, Harold has said that this synthetic RNA is sprayed in bundles attached to lipopeptides, which then become part of the human genetics. It is radio frequency controlled, has 15 this is him stating this, has 15 different dial-in codes in the range of 5 to 11 gigahertz. Activation takes 0.5 seconds, and it offers a variety of psychotronic, non-lethal, and lethal effects. Neural dust is thought to be able to carry consciousness, like a virus carries the spirit of the disease through the air when you catch an infection from another sick person. Its distribution allows for the creation of what he calls a crystal cluster body for artificial intelligence to inhabit. So they're creating a synthetic environment, a synthetic consciousness for AI to take possession of.
That's wild, because how often, Scott, have we said it's not geoengineering anymore? It's almost like they're terraforming. It's like they're changing the planet for something else. And if you start factoring in what Ryan's saying there, it sounds as if we're making it more conducive and even feeding into the black goo.
Exactly. And remember, we had sort of mainstream articles come out talking about how, all of a sudden there's a magnetite in everyone's brain. Remember?
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
You might even pull that up, right?
Yep.
And of course, their kind of whitewash and cover story for it all was, well, it's because of pollution. It's all the pollution in the air, and so everybody around the world has magnetite in their brains.
Yeah, from spraying barium and strontium and aluminum and other aerosols, it's pollution.
Exactly.
There we go. So, questioning the link between pollution by magnetite particles and Alzheimer's disease. And it's a scientific study, folks. It's not like coming from a dark corner of YouTube like some of this stuff. This is real stuff.
And why is it magnetite, right? Of all of the sort of elements or things that can be found in everyone's brain, it just happens to be magnetite.
Nothing to see here, Scott. Nothing to see here.
Obviously, magnetite, reacts to
this, boys.
electromagnetic, fields.
You're gonna love this, guys. You're gonna love this. I just seen it in the chat. I've not been able to hang out in the chat tonight because the conversation with Ryan's just been. I've been sitting on the edge of my seat. But get this: Billie Eilish equals 666 in gematria. Now, I know there's various ways of doing the whole numerology thing, but Ryan, that seems to ring a chord with you, man.
Is that listener named Clay?
Weapon X5. I'm not sure.
Maybe that's Clay. I had a listener. I could find it again. I'm pretty sure I had a listener named Clay send me that. I want to make sure that this is right, so I can give them credit. Yep, Clay. Just won't say the last name, but Clay sent me this. Really enjoyed your recent shows, especially about the Black Mirror and Billie Eilish topics. Just for fun, I ran Billie Eilish through a gematria calculator. The calculator I used, and he gave me the link. It contains several different ways of calculating gematria values, and here are the results. He gives me the English ordinal system, the English reduction system, and the English Sumerian system.
Cool.
Specifically, the English Sumerian system, Billie Eilish equals 666.
And of course,
so
Sumerian Baal. Wow,
Yeah.
man, that's crazy.
Tell me that's just a coincidence. Baal is also identified as the Babylonian Marduk or the Assyrian Ashur.
Sure, I like that. But we're going to have an incoming super chat in a moment, boys, so don't get afraid.
It started years ago with the rubber cookies instead of the crumbly ones. Will this mockery never cease?
Oh, love it. Christian Anthony, thank you very, very much. But yeah, the black goo, way before I'd ever heard about the black goo, there was a theory that nanotechnology would cause something called grey goo. And it would basically self-replicate and it would start to eat everything up and the whole world would just be left in this grey goo. But as
you can see, I'm covered in gray goo. That's
you
why
are.
I have no color on my.
You are. You're in between black goo and white goo. But this whole grey goo thing, it's quite weird because nanotechnology, and then when you start to find out about the black goo, it's definitely a form of sentient technology as well, right?
Yeah, you know what?
Allegedly.
What's interesting about gray goo is that there's a song, I believe it's Rihanna, where she's in the not a pyramid, she's in a triangle. And don't take that as, oh, it's the Illuminati. But she's in a triangle, just for visuals here. Yeah. You got to do it too, Scotty.
You got to trigger people. And people in the comments will be saying that's it. They're Illuminati.
We knew they were in the Illuminati. Yeah. Maybe, I don't know what song it was. Maybe someone can help me out here. Maybe it was Umbrella. I don't remember. But she's in the gray, like a black and white image in a triangle, and she's covered in gray.
It is Umbrella. Not that I spent far too many hours watching Rihanna in music videos. Not at all. Nothing like that. But yeah, it's Umbrella.
Check this out. There's an author. She's read in most universities, and if you take a mythology class, her name is Edith Hamilton. See if I have her book here. I do, but I can't reach it. Edith Hamilton. It's just called Mythology. One of the cheapest mythology books you can buy. I bought mine for like $2 at a used bookstore. She talks about the different ages of man in that book, and she talks about in Greek mythology, sometimes Greek and Roman, sometimes the gods like Jupiter or Zeus, the Greek equivalent of the Roman Jupiter, has a gray thing over his eyes. Basically, his eyes turn gray, like a gray liquid almost, the way she describes it. And the reason that they symbolized him as having that imagery, Jupiter is the son of Saturn, right? And so as the son overcomes the father eventually, and that's why you see images of Saturn eating his own kids. It also represents Saturn, the material god, places in us the seed of our demise. So it's not really a satanic image per se, it's a necessary evil. But the point is, Jupiter as the son of the devil, essentially, a reincarnation of him, of his father, he is the god, the Lord. Baal in Hebrew means Lord of the infernal world. And the infernal world is depicted in gray, black and white, or in between you have the gray. So that's an interesting thing I learned from a random mythology book, and it relates to what you're saying, and it also relates to the Lord of the infernal world, which just so happens to be in Hebrew, Baal, B-A.
Oh, wow. Wow. Somebody in the chat room, They said the film Lucy with the black goo. That's certainly one that jumped out at me. The TV show Helix. There's another one. You could sit here for hours and hours and hours, and this black goo, it's everywhere.
Hey, can you pull up the Billie Eilish where she takes a drink of the black goo real quick and go right to the end? Because she's in a white room with a white cube. And
what's the name of that one again?
When the Party's Over.
Yeah.
And just really quick to paint the visual here. She's in a white room, white cube. She's got the drink. She drinks it. Song goes on. At the end, the black goo is all over the floor, and it takes up the white floor, and then it turns the white cube black as it transitions out of the video. So if you just
so then you got the black cube symbology too.
Exactly. Yeah. And that imagery is identical to Lucy, where she's the computer, she's the black goo, and it takes over that white room. There you go, Kev.
Yeah,
right,
you can see it just coming now.
Yeah, it comes on the floor there. See? And then if you look up, I don't know if you need or want to, but you could look up the Lucy imagery. Just type in Lucy, and I think that's one of the first images that comes up, is with the black goo on the white floor, where she's a computer, but she's represented as this substance. Maybe Lucy movie.
Yep.
There you go. Maybe Lucy movie computer or Lucy black goo. One of those will probably pull it up. There you go. First one, top left. And see, it's the same imagery. Somebody is working to produce this in the music industry, in the television industry, in the film industry. Or, in my view, I don't think people work that well together. It's my opinion. I believe, beyond mere metaphor, that a lot of these people are outright possessed by a force that can connect these industries together. And so you see the same production over and over and over again. And by the way, when someone's possessed, classically, traditionally, that doesn't mean they always walk around levitating. The demon takes possession sometimes, just like a mind-controlled pop star. If you watch the Black Mirror episode of Miley Cyrus, she's her own person, she's doing her own thing, and then she's speaking to an audience, and she's saying whatever she wants, and then when they hear something they don't like, then her handler steps in and says, mention this, say this, and then the handler takes control. So just because someone's possessed doesn't mean they walk around with their eyes black. That's just when the demon is present. In other cases, you walk around, you're normal. You don't even know what's happening to you, but you're being used as a vessel to carry out a very demonic, evil, diabolic agenda. And guess what? Like I said, we know the demon's name. We can exorcise the demon therefrom. In this case, the demon is Baal.
Do we know anything about Billie Eilish's family or anything like that, Ryan? Do we know?
Yeah, her mom and dad are, I believe they're both actors, actresses. Nothing I've ever heard of. Her brother was a star in the show Glee.
All right.
Yeah, and her brother was also in Modern Family. Now, that's a really great question, because apparently her brother, who's young too.
I watched Modern Family. Which one? So what one's the brother?
I have no idea what character he plays. I watched Modern Family, just a couple episodes, because I wanted to see Ed O'Neill. I wanted to see like the Al Bundy.
Yeah. He's cool, man.
Yeah, but I don't know who the brother played.
I'm gonna find out here.
You watch Married with Children? Or watch that?
Yeah.
To believe that we went from goo to you by way of the zoo is by definition madness, but I digress.
We went from goo to you by way of the zoo. I like that. I do like that.
Got some good writing.
I like how the AI voice paused. It was like, but I digress.
So I don't know, what character did he play? Does it say?
I'm trying to find it here. He doesn't actually ring a bell to me, I must admit. Billie Eilish's brother.
They say that her brother writes most of her music, so that tells me he's either possessed or that's just an outright lie, because there's no way this kid has a better working knowledge of the infernal arts than Aleister Crowley does.
No, this is weird.
I don't buy it, guys. And again, I mean, these people could just be normal, arguably, relatively people. you could have conversations with them, and they're cool. But that doesn't mean that.
Yeah, I don't think all of these pop stars are going home and conducting rituals and doing sacrifices 24/7. I mean, I'm sure, or I think a lot of them probably don't even fully accept what's going on with them, you know?
I'm 28, and I'm just now starting to have a grip and understanding on these types of subjects, like, because I've studied it for 10 years nonstop every day of my life. Without really the intention to get there. And other people have done it for a lot longer than me, and they get sometimes to conclusions beyond what I understand. Sometimes they're at the same place I am at 40, 50, 60 years old.
And even the people that are in this kind of world, Ryan, we don't know what bill of goods they're being sold. We don't know what lies they're being told to get them to buy into this crap, you know?
Hey, you know what? On that note, you should look up the video called, it's Poppy. Type in Poppy, and it's a song where she's literally visually making a deal with the devil. So type in like Poppy My Life or something like that.
I've got it.
You got it?
Yeah, I think
she
so.
She makes a deal with the devil. You see that? That is disturbing.
Hang on then.
She's talking with the devil at a table, and the devil has like he does like a fake like oral sex suggestion, and then they pour this like white liquid which is supposed to be semen into a glass, and there's a lot of sexual implications, but then they have like human skulls and bones on the table. Her dress is covered in all these eyes. Low Life is the name of it, and she says, "You're the highlight of my low life." In other words, my life sucks, but the best part is the deal I made with Satan. It made me famous. It made me popular. There you go.
Well, we've got a nice triangle thing going on there to start with. Oh, there's the devil there. Nice.
You got to have that. She comes out of the Orphic egg. She's born again Christian. That's her ritual satanic baptism. And she sings with the devil. And then she signs her. This is also interesting. I didn't catch this the first time. That part where she goes outside and then she signs all of the autographs in red paint. Remember what I told you earlier? Urbain Grandier in Latin backwards in red, i.e. his own blood, signing the contract, signing his name in blood. I mean, this stuff is not like, oops, we accidentally included these things in the video.
No, it goes way. I mean, Scott, there's more chance of winning the national lottery over here 10 weeks on the trot. There's better odds of me doing that than all of this just being some crazy coincidence. And we're mad for like connecting all of this. We're just seeing things that aren't there, Scott, right?
Yeah, I think there's a better chance of a hurricane going through a junkyard and building a and just randomly blowing together all the pieces into a 747 and having a completed aircraft.
Don't forget the sentient AI for the autopilot as well. You know that blows in there as well.
Exactly.
You gotta activate Skynet, get the whole thing operational. Hey, you ever hear of the TV show Gravity Falls? We didn't mention this tonight.
Oh my God, Bill from Gravity Falls.
Bill
Hang on, this is a new one. I heard you talking about Gravity Falls on your recent podcast, Ryan. Fill me in, man.
Well, Gravity Falls is a Disney Channel show.
Yeah.
And it's about these two kids that go live with their uncle. And it has this weird, like, Pacific Northwest obsession with Bigfoot and conspiracies and breaking codes and hunting down secrets and mysteries.
All right, cool.
There's an episode, one in particular, where you find out the boy's sister really likes to make these dolls, and he in the episode is trying to get access to this computer, and so this demon Bill Cipher is a hat man archetype, the black hat with the one eye, who was conjured and summoned in another episode. They show how he was brought into this world. He was summoned by a magician essentially. And he makes a deal with the kid. He says, "I just want a puppet." And the kid's like, "Well, you just want one of my sister's puppets? That's weird." He's like, "Yeah, just one puppet's a small price to pay for all the secrets of the universe." And so the kid ends up saying, "Okay, I agree. Just let me into the computer." And so the demon says, "Okay, and he shakes his hand, and as they're shaking hands, he says, "Okay, so what puppet do you want?" And the demon says, "I don't know, eeny, meeny, miny, you." And he strips the kid's soul out of his body. This is in the kids' show for the Disney Channel. Whoa. And his voice is distorted. And if you read books about Baal, like books on demonology, Baal's voice is also distorted. And then that also, of course, takes us to the Powerpuff Girls. And the Powerpuff Girls, you guys remember the Powerpuff Girls Cartoon Network? Hanna-Barbera? Him. And what does that stand for? His Infernal Majesty, the devil.
Check this out as well. This Gravity Falls, we're getting the actor from Stranger Things, Dustin. I think it's Dustin, isn't it? The wee guy. And it's going to be a real life version. Gravity Falls 2019. No. Yeah.
Oh, they're making a movie out of that?
Uh-huh.
Oh my God.
Yep. So yeah. But,
yeah, I remember when I first saw Gravity Falls and I saw the Bill character, I was like, no way. This is too much. This is just too much. Because he's like totally, the pyramid all-seeing eye, basically, with just arms and a leg. And then, like you said, he's got like the Hat Man archetype, just. Yeah. I'm like, well, of course, Disney. Why would I not be?
Yeah,
exactly.
If you're watching Disney, I'd be surprised if you don't see that.
So Ryan, to kind of, if we can, sum things up tonight for the audience. I mean, how can you kind of summarize everything we've gone over in 5 minutes or so? But let me thank you for coming on and sharing this and expanding on what we done the other night on the Kev Baker show. It's been brilliant. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Judging by the audience, they've equally enjoyed it as well. So thank you for your time for that. But that kind of takeaway, kind of headline, that punchline for the audience out there, how would you really sum all of this up, dude?
It was a good question, and I wish that there was a well-thought-out answer I could give you. What I would say is pay attention to what you're focusing your attention on. You go to a dictionary, type in the word entertain. The word entertain is typically defined in some variation as directing or directionalizing attention. So entertainment is to directionalize your attention. And when you do that, let's say you go to a movie, you pay your ticket, and when you buy your Netflix subscription, you pay for that. What do you call it when you watch something or when you're listening to something and you're intently listening or watching? You call it paying attention. So you're paying attention with your energy, right? And then when you go to a movie or buy your subscription, you're paying with currency, which is currency, electricity, energy. So you're paying with energy in a variety of different ways. And then something that's called chaos magic, people might know that. You use sigils, you place those sigils there, symbols, talismans, things like that. And the energy directed towards it helps to manifest it, like an egregore, a tulpa, Tibetan thought form, or various other names like the bringing forth of artificial life, like the alchemists tried to do with the homunculus, the little man, or Crowley's moonchild. So we're talking about the creation of artificial synthetic life forms through the directionalizing of energy and attention. We're talking about the usage of energy from people that, unbeknownst to them, they're being used while they're being entertained, where they're focused on sigils and they help to bring these things to life. When you watch those music videos, not all of them, but a large number of them, I believe, are outright in the open, blatantly rituals of a very dark nature meant to invoke and conjure entities and demons. In this case, we know Baal with Billie Eilish. And when you pay attention to that, it's not about like, hey, I'm a Christian, and if I watch this, I'm going to go to hell. I don't buy that angle. I'm not a Christian. All right, I don't have any identification. I'm not an atheist either. I'm saying this from a very, very neutral standpoint. And there's only one word that can be used to really describe it, because I'm really critical of words like Satanism and evil and demons and stuff like that because of its overusage and oversaturation. You watch stuff like this, there's only one word that you can really use to describe it. It's evil.
Yep.
And if you take the word evil, Kev, you throw a D on it, you get the devil. You take the word good, remove an O, you get the word God. But if you reverse the word evil, what do you get? You get Live, you get live. Evil is an inversion of life. And when you have a promotion of death, destruction, rape, murder, as Crowley said, anything bad. That's what I want. Death, destruction, etc., etc. And that's what you see promoted through these industries. And that's what you see directed into the brains of children. You know that maybe they're not coming at this from a religious standpoint. They're coming at this from the standpoint of they're just really, really evil people that don't care about anything except power, or because of that, they've opened themselves up to some kind of possession. And that works through them, through the celebrities, through the entertainers, and right into your head. So be cautious. And what I would suggest, Clyde Lewis and I kind of coined this. I mentioned it on his show months ago. You wear the blindfold of discernment. You wear the blindfold from Bird Box. And you don't put the blindfold on so you can't see. You put the blindfold on so you're careful of what you look at. Because if you look at the wrong thing, you might end up committing suicide.
Where attention goes, energy flows. Scotty Lopez, this has been pretty amazing. Always is when Ryan comes on, but I don't know, this topic in particular, the music, it's something that everybody can really relate to, even if you're into Billie Eilish or Miley Cyrus, or you've never heard of them. It's a really interesting thing, and I think it's built into us, Scott. We recognise the programming that comes from there, and what gets me is, and why it is so important, aside from the entertainment, the infotainment side of this, it's interesting stuff, but this is aimed directly at children. And like Ryan said there, when you factor that in, that takes that evil to a whole new level. You look at what else is going on in the world in the bigger picture, the Epsteins, what they're trying to do to, children, to basically destroy their innocence younger and younger. And you can see how all of this fits together. And I'm telling you, it's inhuman where this is coming from. That's my own opinion. This is a dark, dark thing we're seeing playing out, Scott.
Yeah, exactly. And, now that we're seeing, it's not so much now. You still see it like with the Miley Cyruses and stuff, the promotion of this sort of like sexual debauchery and stuff like that. But now it's gone into this like promotion of suicide and like depression. It's taken a much more dark turn, and now you're just kind of seeing it permeate through society, right? Like you're almost seeing depression and suicide sort of being morphed into like memes online, right? Like people kind of joke about it now. It's become this topic of
it's almost become a norm. Yeah, it's almost become a norm, dude.
Yeah, like you see these memes where it's like, it refers to something like, oh, my crippling depression or something like that, and it's sort of like a ha funny, let's just laugh about our depression and laugh about our suicidal tendencies or whatever. And it's just really weird, really dark that we've kind of gone into this sort of, realm, and it's really weird. And like I said, when we're talking about this music, this pop music and stuff, it really is having a detrimental effect on society. And look, guys, if you catch your kids out there listening to Billie Eilish or Megadeth, I highly suggest taking the Billie Eilish CD as opposed to taking the Megadeth CD.
Scott's going to be campaigning for death metal forever, man. You're like a death metal lobbyist. I love it, dude.
No, Megadeth. Look, Dave Mustaine. Dave Mustaine is a cool dude, and he drops. He knows a lot of what's going on. So I would rather listen to Dave Mustaine than listen to Billie Eilish any time. So.
Brilliant,
I'm gonna leave it
Scott.
there.
Brilliant, Scott. Now, Ryan, before we go, you've got a show coming up or something to tell the audience about before we go tonight, man. I want you to give you the floor. Let people know where they can find you, man.
Yeah, I got a couple things going on. So my show's 5 nights a week, Monday through Friday on the Fringe FM. The Fringe.fm is the network website.
And everyone must check that out. I insist. Yes.
And I tell you what, I let my audience know about the Kev Baker show too, because in one of the top 5 shows that I listen to, I only listen to about 5 shows, and you're right there. I love the Kev Baker Show, sincerely, and you have an awesome audience, and that's one of the things I wanted to bring up. I've gotten a tremendous number of people that have messaged me after the last show we did, people that have subscribed, purchased a book, or have just been interested in listening to the show. So I wanted to do two things, two little promotions tonight. I'd like to give away digital copies of my book. I'd like to give away 3. So for the first 3 people that email me, I'll give the email out in a second. I'll give you a digital copy of any book you want. I've got The Technological Elixir, The Black Goo and Transhumanism and AI. I've got Occult Arcana, which is quite a large book. And then I have Food Philosophy for other people that might be interested in that. So I'll give away 3 copies, digital copies for free. And then I also am going to, just for your audience, I'll offer 20% off all subscriptions for, I guess the time being. If you heard me on the Kev Baker Show, you want a subscription to the archive, 20% off. And that also gets you a physical copy of a book right now, just until the month of July is over. So
awesome,
a couple
man.
Cool things there, Kev. And also, I'd like to thank you for having me on the show. Really, being on your show, we haven't taken a break tonight. We've gotten to so much stuff.
It's been awesome.
Been fantastic.
No, it's so easy working with you. And I know from listener emails, they certainly enjoy when we hook up together. And you add in Scott, and Joe had to shoot away, unfortunately. But, I mean, this has been absolutely brilliant tonight. It's one of these shows that, even though I've been a part of it, I'll need to listen to it again tomorrow when I get up. There's been so much information. And the audience out there, just want to thank all of you as well, because, it's one thing us 3 hooking up and having a conversation, but we talk about that attention and the energy. And I don't care what anyone says, when you're doing this kind of thing, I'm not the best of public speakers. I hate speaking in public. But I get that energy from somewhere. I'm not going to say I'm channeling energy from the audience, but there's something goes on, guys. There is. And whether it's the live stream, whether it's TFR, listeners, hosts, guests, we all come together. And it doesn't work one without the other. So I thank everyone for tuning in. And Scotty, it's been great to have you on over the weekend, my good friend. And yes, next week when we have you back on, we'll give you 5 minutes, to make your case for the death metal.
I shall put together a case for death metal. So we'll do it.
Shows you the power of stereotypes, though, right? Because a lot of people, you think of heavy metal, and you just automatically, people will think, oh, that's satanic. That's the power of programming. It's a stereotype. Like you say, it's one that doesn't necessarily deserve when you start to dig into what the music's about and who the characters are.
Yeah. And generally, you think pop music, you think happy bubblegum pop music, right? And then you dig deeper into it, and pop music is actually the real satanic music.
Yeah. So, you see, if they made all pop stars dance like and look like AOC, the world would be a far happier place, folks.
Oh, no.
Oh, come on,
You had to go there.
Yeah,
you had to go there at some point, didn't you?
You knew it. But before we go... hang on now. Where are we? There we go. Before we go, I promised listeners that they could see my brown chicken, brown cow look. So I will bring up my 70s porn star look, which I think is absolutely brilliant. I'm going to get them to kind of give me this look at the barbers next time I go. There we go, Scott. There we go, Ryan. Brown chicken, brown cow. What a guy.
I'm trying to decide, Kev. Is it 70s porn star or is it 70s detective?
I think it's a porn star detective.
It could be a porn. I was thinking that too. It could be a porn star detective.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like the beginning to a really bad porn flick, right?
It really is. But I mean, can't you just hear it? Can't you hear it? Brown chicken, brown cow.
Kev walks in. I'm a private detective. I'm here to solve the case.
They call me Baker, Dick Baker. Right, on that note, ladies
Detective Diggler.
And just a guy, he was saying it's time for a bong hit. I think I might be joining you after the show, but folks,
I got something to make you smile. If I can be that guy for a second, here's my...
You know what? That was my opening line in my first movie as Dirk Diggler. I've got something that can make you smile. Nah, come on, that was funny, guys. Come on. A tough audience. Show us that lovely child of yours again, Ryan. What were you saying?
No, I was just saying there's something that maybe will make people smile. I know I'm that guy showing you the picture of the kid, but...
Quite right, dude. Quite right. I remember what it was like. Let me warn you, though. 17 years from now, it will be an obnoxious, know-it-all teenager that's going to do your head in. Just saying.
You know what? I'm hoping that once he gets a little older, I'll be able to sit down and we can enjoy some of this fine pop music that we have today together.
Absolutely.
You know, I'm already putting the headphones on him. See, these are my studio headphones. I put these on him when he goes to bed, and I let him listen to Billie Eilish at night.
Quite right, dude.
Yeah.
You should maybe try swapping Billie Eilish for David Icke. That's essential listening for a child. But even this picture's even disturbing me now. It's a really disturbing picture. And I know it's probably too soon. But tell you what, that disturbingly looks a lot like Isaac Cappy.
Oh.
Doesn't it just? Now Scott's seen it, he can't unsee it, you see?
Yeah, I see it now too.
It's disturbing, and look, Scott's Skype crashed. It's disturbed him that much.
You crashed the Skype with that.
What can I say, folks? What can I say? But Ryan, again, man, this has been awesome tonight, dude. And Scott, you're back. We thought we'd crashed your camera there, man.
It might have happened.
It just might have happened. So we're out of here, folks. War in the chat room. Great to see you. We got Hillary in there. Just a guy. That worrisome. You better run. Frank Franklin, Laurel, JP Smart, Kazi. Big shout out to Kazi, fellow Glaswegian. We've got Mr. Mensa. So many people in there. Thank you all so much. I'll be back tomorrow on the Kev Baker Show. Ryan, any guests planned this week?
No guests. I just have 2 shows planned out already. Tomorrow is going to be called War of the Pathogens, Bioweapon Metastasizing. And Tuesday is called Inclusive False Idols.
Nice.
No guests this week.
Right.
So. Nice.
And by the way, they can find that at thesecretteachings.info. And the email, I didn't even give that out for the free books. First 3 people, rdgable@yahoo.com. That's rdgable@yahoo.com and thesecretteachings.info.
There we go. Secret teachings there, folks. And what was the email one more time, Ryan? Just so people can get a note of that.
rdgable, like Clark Gable, Gable, rdgable@yahoo.com. It's also at the top of the website there under the slider.
Awesome. Absolutely awesome, guys. So we are out of here. And to take us out, I'll play some more of that music that Joe and Scott love so much. And Scott, you got to admit, man, now that uni's on the case, the music's getting slightly better, dude.
Yeah, that definitely has made things a lot more tolerable.
A lot more tolerable. Was it that bad? Was it that bad? Hey, that's worrisome. You better run. I love that name, and thank you so much, brother, sister, non-binary, 45 other genders to choose from, whatever you are.
Anything you want.
Yeah, here we go.